أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. فوضوا أمري إلى الله إن الله بصير بالعباد. ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل ونعم المولى ونعم النصير. والصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على الرسول المسدد المصطفى الأمجد المحمود الأحمد الذي سمي في السماء بأحمد وفي الأرض بأبي القاسم محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين المنتجبين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. وقل رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. أما بعد، قال الله تبارك وتعالى في كتاب الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنه كان عبدا شكورا. صدق الله العلي العظيم. My respected elders, brothers and sisters in Iman, Salamun alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Question: what is the most important trait in life for your happiness? Keep this question in the back of your mind, inshallah. We'll return to it. When one comes forward with life, many times we experience difficulties. Many times we face adversity in our lives. Some of the most difficult moments in our lives emerge from time to time. We lose a loved one, someone that we love. We lose a friend, someone who's close to us. Sometimes we have a loss in that sense. Sometimes we have a loss in terms of our wealth. We lose our income, for example. We lose a job. We lose, for example, some investment that we did. And we also at times lose, for example, relationships, and we lose other material belongings as well. Through that loss, mankind is faced with the difficulty of trying to overcome these. And in terms of one getting benefit in their lives, to be ultimately happy in terms of a sense of contentment, satisfaction, and well being in terms of the heart and mind, one of the most important traits to adopt this and develop this, and in fact, maybe the most important trait in life, is the trait of gratitude. Gratitude is that one thing. If someone were to ask me, what is the one trait that you can adopt to be successful in this world and in the next, I would have to argue that a strong case would be made for this one trait of gratitude. And I'll look at this, and we will look at this together at a number of levels. Looking at number one, what does Islam say about this concept? What were the traditions of the Prophet and his family with respect to gratitude? And how can gratitude help the wayfarer, the person who's on the path of spirituality, the person who's on the path of trying to get to God, of having a sense of meaning? How can gratitude help them? Then I want to look at the science. And there is an abundant amount of science in this space that actually shows that gratitude may very well be a superpower to help us live better lives, no matter what our circumstances and our conditions may be. And finally, I want to look at what are those elements of the prophets and their lives, and how they implemented gratitude, and how we can learn from that example, and what this trait, which is not just limited to us, but to all of humanity, how it can benefit us in our lives in so many different levels. Therefore, I want to start by discussing gratitude and its insistence by various world religions, by various thinkers and scientists as well, and how this can implement this, how we can implement this in our lives. Before we get there, I want to make it abundantly clear: we're discussing philosophy, ethics, and spirituality, Islam in a modern society. How can we get to spirituality, which is our ultimate goal, a sense of meaning, a sense of closeness to God, and a sense of purpose in life? And what type of thinking and what traits through ethics that we can adopt can help us get there? There is no doubt that for the mystic, or the person who's on the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, trying to get to God, trying to get spirituality, gratitude is one of the most important traits. In a nutshell, spirituality from the Islamic perspective is filling our hearts and our minds with the remembrance of God, remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and his bounties and benefits upon us. Therefore, by virtue, being mindful and remembering the benefits and the grace of Allah in our lives will help us towards that journey. But this is not something that only Muslims revere. If you look at, for example, world religions, they've also emphasized this concept of gratitude. What other religions, for example? For example, Judaism. If you look at Jewish scriptures, you will find it very clearly within that doctrine as well. As we believe the Abrahamic faiths of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam have a common ethos in many respects because it's the same message of God, just with other elements for different times. With Islam culminating the message that came from Judaism and Christianity and the prophets of before. Therefore, in Judaism, the question arises in Jewish scripture, well, who is rich? Who is rich? And the answer comes, the one who is grateful, the one who has gratitude, the one who has gratefulness in their life, they will be rich, no matter what material possessions they have or do not have. In Christianity, this concept comes forward as well. If you go to Luke within the Bible, the chapter on Luke, you will find there's a moment in time where Jesus, peace be upon him, he cures 10 lepers, 10 people who are suffering from leprosy. Leprosy is that disease which begins to eat away at the skin. And this is an ancient disease. And many times in the past, people would be banished to the far outskirts of town so that this disease did not affect other people. And so people would not typically go towards the leper. Jesus in the Bible cures 10 people who have leprosy. But what happens afterwards is something that is worth noting. And what happens is after these 10 people with leprosy are cured, 9 of them go about their ways and leave. Only one of those individuals comes back and falls at the feet of Jesus and says thanks and praise for this gratefulness. And I'm thankful and grateful for this great gift of being cured of leprosy. At that moment, according to the Bible, Jesus responds there at that very moment and says, where are the other 9? Were 10 people not cured? And only one, who was a Samaritan, had the decency to be thankful to God for this gift? Pointing and shedding light on this idea that not only should one be grateful, but one should also be wary and be conscious of not being grateful. The science, by the way, shows that being grateful is more beneficial to us than anyone else, in fact. And I bring this forward because this area of gratitude, according to researchers, is somewhere where the science is now catching up with conventional wisdom. Or another way to say this is the science is catching up with religion. Religion, which have said for many years and many centuries and many generations that gratitude is a gift that you should adopt in your life, the science is now coming forward in our society today and is saying that this is in fact a superpower that one may actually develop in their lives that can change their lives. What do I mean? If you look at research from different institutions, such as the University of Pennsylvania, you and I will find a tremendous slew of information and science that backs up adopting this trait of gratitude. In fact, this may be that trait that gives you more happiness, more tranquility, more peace of mind than any other trait on this planet, perhaps. And I'm here to argue that. How? A study conducted at the University of Pennsylvania looked at 2 groups. The researchers came forward and had group 1 and group 2, group A and group B. To group B, which was group 2, the second group, they told them this was a group, they told them to just journal generally. This is what in science would be called the placebo or the control group. The placebo or the control group is that one which you keep constant, so you measure against the first group or the group you want to test, the variable group. And so the control group, they told him just journal regularly, journal normally, how you would any other time of the day. And so that group journaled for roughly a week and continued this on. Group 1, the first group, they told them, hey, look, we want you to journal about 3 things, 3 blessings that you have in your life, 3 things that you're thankful for, 3 things that went well yesterday, for example. List those things, but don't just list them, explore them. So reflect on them and explore them. So for example, one says that I'm really thankful for the iftar meal or the dinner I had last night. Well, okay, but what about it? What specifically are you thankful? Go deeper. Don't just stay on the surface level. Or for example, I'm really grateful I was able to spend time with my family, for example. Well, don't just go to that level, go deeper. Well, why are you grateful for that? And so when they reflected on this, so they told these 2 groups to do this and they tracked them over time. They found after 1 week, after months, and ultimately after 6 months, these people who continued in journaling in being grateful for what they had, they found that those people who focused on gratitude and being grateful, group one, compared to group two that just did normal journaling about whatever came to their mind, group one that was grateful, their happiness went up, their happiness increased, and their depression decreased. The researchers cite that it's not a treatment. Gratitude is not necessarily a treatment for depression, but it's a very good trait to have that can help you reduce your depression and increase your happiness. They've fallen just short of saying it's a treatment, but they've said nonetheless, there's no doubt from the scientific perspective that being grateful in one's life can be tremendously helpful in order to help us move forward. What else? Research has also found that gratefulness and gratitude can help you sleep better. How many people in our world have trouble sleeping at night? People who are worried about work, people who are worried about family life, people who have so many worries. Researchers have found that if you focus on your positives, on your gratitude and what you're grateful for at night before you go to sleep, you're much more likely to get better sleep, a better quality of sleep, as opposed to what happens when many times we lay in bed at night. Many times when people lie in bed at night, they're thinking about what they're worried about. They're thinking about what's the problems in their life. What are the things that I have to do tomorrow? What's my stresses, my anxieties? What am I worried about? But researchers find if you stop and pause and reflect and focus for a moment on that of what you're grateful for, instead of focusing on the problems in life, you will find you will get to sleep faster and the quality of your sleep will be better. So it helps in sleep. What else? Researchers find a correlation between gratitude and a higher sense of meaning, a higher sense of purpose. In fact, researchers find a strong correlation between gratitude and religiosity in religion. That is, belief in a God, belief in this higher sense of being, this higher sense of purpose. How? Well, they looked at people who, for example, go on a walk, as an example, and go in nature. And when they stop and pause in nature, they go and look at the trees and they look at, for example, the birds, and they look at all of the different dimensions of society and civilization, and they say, wow, what created this? What entity created this? So they have a sense of higher meaning, a sense of higher purpose. Furthermore, researchers find that people who practice more gratitude and gratefulness have lower levels of materialism. They have less materialism. Remember, we began our series of discussions on the first day with this conversation about our world is increasing in material gains, in income, in health benefits, and so many material benefits. But at the same time, as material benefits of income and economic prosperity and money have increased, so too has our general happiness decreased. Happiness has gone down. And one of the main reasons is because of materialism. We think that we will get more property, we think that we will get more possessions, more cars, more houses, more nice clothes, and we will automatically be happier. Whereas the research shows that these things are just makeup and bandages for unhappiness in life. Those material possessions are just makeup and bandages for the missing things in my life, which are the intangibles. That is happiness, of gratitude, of thankfulness, of generosity, of humility. These traits are real richness in life. Well, the researchers went forward. Well, why is it that gratitude leads to less materialism, and why is that good? The reason they say is when someone's grateful, they look at, for example, their closet, and when they look at their closet, they say, okay, I have these clothes. And one way of looking at their closet and saying, I have these clothes, is one perspective is, well, I don't have anything to wear. This would be a perspective of being ungrateful, according to researchers. But if you stop and pause and reflect and look at your clothes and say, for example, wow, I'm so grateful I have this shirt or this pant or this shoe or this X, Y, and Z, and you realize you have an abundance of things, especially compared to many other people around the globe, you start to appreciate what you have more. You fall in love with the things that you already have, and you're grateful for what you already have. And you realize that I don't really need much more material possessions. This is correlated with a greater sense of happiness in life. What else? Humility, humbleness, which we talked about 2 days ago. Humility, and we said humility is very closely related to generosity. People who are more humble are more inclined to be generous, and people who are more generous are more happy, as explained in the paradox of happiness, or the paradox of generosity, I should say. Researchers find that people who are more grateful are also more humble. And people who are humble are more grateful. It's a cycle. When you incorporate humbleness and humility in your life, you will notice you're more grateful. And when you incorporate gratefulness and gratitude in your life, you will notice that you become more humble. And that will lead to the cycle of humbleness, gratitude, generosity, and ultimately happiness. Study after study has been done in this regard. What other studies? Professor Adam Grant, again at the University of Pennsylvania, he wanted to see, is there any business impact of being thankful? And I'm speaking now to all the leaders in our community. I'm speaking to all the leaders in families. I'm speaking to all the leaders in countries, to people around the globe who are leaders. And if you don't know if you're a leader or not, trust me, you're a leader. So take my word on that. So Adam Grant wanted to see, is there any benefit of being thankful and actually articulating and saying our thankfulness and gratitude to someone? Does that have an impact? And so they took two groups at the university who were responsible for raising funds for the university, who were responsible for generating donations and fundraising for the community. The first group, they kept things going as normal. This was the control group. The second group came forward and they said, look, to the supervisors, to the leaders of their teams, they said, we want you to do one thing. I said, what? So we want you to simply say a genuine, sincere thank you to your team. A genuine, sincere thank you? Yeah. Just go to your team and tell them, I'm so thankful and appreciative of what you do sincerely from the bottom of my heart. Just say that however you feel like you would say that. So those supervisors, those leaders went to their teams and asked them and told them, look, I'm so appreciative and thankful for all the hard work you do. I know it's not easy making calls all day, calling people, asking them for funds, and at times people say no, but you stay with it, and I'm so thankful for that. What benefit from a business professional standpoint do you think that led to? Well, the researchers at the University of Pennsylvania, which for those in the UK who may not know, is an Ivy League institution, one of the most prestigious in the country, they found that 50% increase, a 50% increase in the group that was thanked by their supervisors compared to the other group. That means that thanking your team has a big impact on the bottom line. The old narrative about tough leadership, of hard leadership, is being overturned by the science. In fact, research is showing intellectual humility, gratitude in leadership, generosity in leadership. These traits of positive psychology and emotional intelligence are a lot more helpful and beneficial to actually lead teams in the future than what you and I may traditionally think of in terms of the hard form of leadership. Leadership that is bendable, that is flexible, and actually encourages and inspires their team is much more effective in this domain. Take my word for it. My research area and my doctorate and my dissertation is actually leadership and innovation. And these traits go a long way to actually help the business and the professional domain and the bottom line. What else further? There's something called the honeymoon effect. And pay close attention here because this will help you in your life. What is the honeymoon effect? The honeymoon effect is this idea that in relationships, as well as in other domains of life, there's this certain period of time, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, whatever time period that may be. It's usually less than a year on average. Normally, there's this beautiful moment of time where people are, for example, as the name comes, honeymoon, people are in love, people care about each other, people have a lot of affection, and things are really great. And things are in fact increasing, one may even argue. And they're high, and there's this infatuation and this love and affection. But after 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, what happens is that begins to decline, that begins to dip, and things begin to go down. Not necessarily downhill to the point of things being over, but to the point where it's not what it used to be. The honeymoon, as they say, is over. This is what exists in relationships. Well, research finds this actually exists in professional domains as well. This actually exists in jobs. In work, people find, or in companies find, and institutions find, that the first 6 months, the first 9 months of an employee on the job are the most productive. But after 6 to 9 months, their productivity declines and goes down. And this is not depending on the job, by the way. This is across the board. How do I say that? Well, Google is considered one of the most sought after companies to work for in the world. And this is evidenced by where MBA graduates from Harvard go to. Harvard MBA graduates always used to go to either two industries in the 90s and before that. One was, for example, Wall Street or banking, and the other was consulting. In the past 2 decades, they've actually turned westward towards Google and Silicon Valley and other similar companies. Well, Google does a lot of research on trying to find out how they can keep their employees happy and most productive. And researchers wanted to know, how do we stop Googlers, people who work there, from declining in their productivity? And interestingly, they found one very valuable solution. What was that very valuable solution? They asked people there to write 3 things that you are grateful for, 3 things that you are happy for, 3 things that are extremely important in your life. Write them down with respect to this job. Why are you grateful for this job? For example, this job allows me to follow my passion. Maybe that's one. For example, this job allows me to fulfill myself in my work so I can help support my family, my loved ones. Okay. This job, for example, allows me to learn about new things I didn't know about. Whatever those 3 things are, journal about those every day. The results were astonishing. What they found was, by just writing at the beginning of the day 3 things that you are grateful for about your job, they were able to extend the honeymoon period well beyond 6 months, 9 months, 12 months into years. This is how powerful just thinking about and contemplating on what you're grateful for can be in terms of helping you and I live better lives and more fulfilled lives. Islam has highly emphasized this concept as well. It's not something to be taken lightly. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, through his messenger Rasulullah, shows the example of gratitude. When and where? We have traditions that are said that, for example, Aisha, the wife of Rasulullah, would tell him that you're praying too much, for example, you're spending too much time in prayers. And at that time, Rasulullah would say, should I not be thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Should I not be thankful to my Lord for this blessing that he's given? It's attributed that Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen said Rasulullah would spend the entire night in prayer, to the point that the Quran said, Taha, that at that point Allah is telling his prophet, his messenger, Taha, my beloved, that you're praying so much to me. This idea that this is how thankful the prophet was. This is how powerful gratitude is. But why do I say maybe gratitude is the most powerful and the most important trait in life? Why? I want to tell you about a story. This story happened not too long ago. And it happened to someone who's one of the richest people in the world, and someone who has access to resources that you and I, the average person, doesn't have access to. The amount of money, the amount of network, the people that they know. This person has everything that one would want from a worldly perspective. This lady was vacationing with her husband and friends in a location in Mexico in a remote resort. This individual, the husband, went to the gym to work out in the morning. They were there to celebrate the birthday of one of their friends. And in this getaway vacation, this paradise on earth, if one wants to say it that way from whatever lens, from the material lens, the husband of this lady goes to the gym. And when he goes to the gym, he goes to work out. When he goes to work out, he's on the treadmill and he's working out. When he's working out, this is in isolation. There's no one in this remote locality. And what happens is, after some time, he has an irregular heartbeat that occurs. And this irregular heartbeat that is arrhythmic, that is not normal in terms of its rhythm, it causes him to actually fall off the treadmill, strike his head, and begin to bleed. Now, in a normal case, if there were other people around in a normal gym, they would call the police, the ambulances, and the emergency medical services and get this treated out. But because it was a remote location, her husband actually stayed there on the ground bleeding for over 2 hours. And through that process, he bled so much that once they were able to get him to the hospital, the doctors come outside from the emergency room, and they come out and they tell this lady that we tried our best, but we weren't able to save him. She goes into shock and she goes into immense depression. At that point in time, she's someone who had lived her whole life being someone who's rational, who's someone who's strong, who's been a great leader by many sense of the word. And she's saying, I was now in a place where I could not be in control of my emotions. I couldn't take it. I didn't know what to do. So she said, how can I not be thankful to my Lord? How can I not be thankful to Allah? For He's given me so many gifts and so many blessings. He has allowed me to be in seclusion and in separation away from Him so that I can worship Him and I'm not distracted by the people. He said, beyond that, this town that you see by the seashore, I have been blessed to be the person who is constantly remembering and in a mindful state with respect to God. I'm constantly remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is a blessing. He's given me the ability to actually stop and praise Him where other people may be negligent and other people may forget their duty to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I'm thankful. And this vision, He's removed it. I'm no longer able to sin with my eyes. At that point in time, Musa understood this was the greatest of Allah's creation, the one that had gratefulness, the one who had gratitude. So what are the different levels and stages of gratitude in one's life? In one's life, the different stages are gratitude and thankfulness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Thankfulness to God for the gifts and the bounties that He's bestowed upon us. The same way Musa alayhi salam was reflecting on them. What else is gratitude? Gratitude, according to our ulama, our scholars, the next level of gratitude is being grateful through our actions, our body. How does that work? The way that works is to understand that our bodies are gifts from Allah. The ability to walk, the ability to talk, the ability to see, the ability to sense. All of these are gifts from Allah. And therefore, if it's a gift, the way of showing and expressing gratitude is by not using the gifts of Allah in order to sin. Not using Allah's gifts in order to do vice. Not using the gifts of Allah to reject His message. That's the next level. And the third level of gratefulness and gratitude is actually being grateful to others. As the tradition goes, he who is not thankful to others cannot be thankful to Allah or is not thankful to God. These are the different levels of gratitude in one's life. Therefore, as an action item, as a takeaway, as a gift for you and I in our lives, one thing that the research and the data show that is one of the most important traits that you can adopt in your life to help you keep you from catastrophizing, from thinking about the worst, from actually not only not thinking about the worst, but also developing happiness and spirituality in life, is by every day writing down the 3 blessings. What are the blessings that I'm grateful for? For example, what went well yesterday? List 3 things that went well yesterday. For example, I had a good iftar dinner. For example, I was able to spend time with my family. For example, I was able to learn something. We don't realize many times we're not grateful about the knowledge that has been bestowed upon us. We have in traditions and Quranic verses as well as in traditions that when the illiterate, the one who does not know how to read and write, approaches the one who is literate and asks them to read something for them, asks them to teach them something, the first thing that the person should do who is able to read and write is thank Allah for the blessing of being able to read and write, number 1. And number 2, by helping the other person read and write, you are showing gratitude and must show gratitude that Allah, thank you for allowing me the ability to be able to read and write so I can help someone else. This is the level of gratitude. So number 1, practical implication and practical action item that can help you and save your life in terms of your tranquility is write down 3 blessings. Numerous studies, and I would actually implore and invite all of those people who are educators in our community to adopt this in your madrasas, in your Sunday schools, in your Saturday schools, in your full-time schools. Adopt this in your businesses, adopt this in your life. It will help you. I know businesses where there were tremendous project team problems and challenges, and the way they were solved was by listing 3 things that we're grateful for about our colleagues, about our team, about our work at the beginning of the day. Students who are taught to write 3 things that they're happy for and grateful for, numerous times their depression decreased, their happiness increased, their optimism increased. There are tremendous benefits of this. Begin to do this at the dinner table. Begin to do this wherever you are in life. Write down 3 things that you are grateful for. Number 1, first element. And the second, and maybe just as important, if not more important, reframe your negative experiences in positive, grateful framework. What does that mean? The first element was think about three things you're grateful for. Now, the second element is think about those things that were challenging in your life, those things that are difficulties in your life. Think about those difficult things and now find the silver lining, find the beautiful aspect, find the wonderful aspect of that so that you can implement it and see what's the beautiful aspect. For example, if someone loses their ability to walk, is there any silver lining? Sometimes you can realize, I remember I was in a gala dinner in London some years ago, and there was someone speaking there who had become paralyzed from the neck down. And this person was, in my understanding, in my experience, I tell you with my hand on my heart, with sincerity, the most happy person I've met in my life. Genuinely happy. And the way this person said that they were able to achieve this happiness, even though becoming paralyzed after an accident, was through being grateful to God and having gratitude about the blessings in life. This is how valuable this is. This will help in numerous aspects of life. So the second level is reframing difficult things and reframing and see what's the silver lining. So for example, a student, you're at dinner, your son makes the basketball team, makes the football team, makes the soccer team, but what's the problem? He says, none of my friends are on the team. I feel alone. Well, what's the benefit of that? If you start thinking about what's the silver lining, what's the benefit in the struggle, you will realize at that point in time, as the researchers say, there is always a silver lining, even when it's difficult to see. So that child realizes that maybe this is an opportunity for me to make new friends. I say this because gratitude, our journey of spirituality, our goal is to fill our hearts, remove as much from our hearts about this world and love of this world, and fill this heart with love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of Allah. And the stepping stone of how to be closer and fill our hearts with the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is through actually being grateful to Him. And I finish with the words of Sayyid al-Hakim in his writings on spirituality, in his book of spirituality, where he stated that one of the traits of the spiritual ones, one of the traits of the God conscious ones, one of the traits of the ones who are close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and on the spiritual path and at the higher levels, is that they are grateful to Allah in ease when times are good, and they are grateful to Allah in hardship. And who better to exemplify this than Sayyida Zainab? Sayyida Zainab, who after all those atrocities, all those difficulties, all of Karbala and Kufa and Sham, when she's asked, what did Allah do to you? And what did Allah do to your family? And what did you see? She looked right back at the tyrant and looked in his eyes and said, Ma ra'aytu illa jamila. I saw nothing but beauty. This is gratitude and gratefulness to Allah, to God Almighty, in the face of the most difficult of circumstances. And this is what leads to beauty in your life and my life in our lives. And we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to have gratitude and gratefulness in our lives, to have the ability to move forward with our lives by thanking God and not have a single moment of our lives where we are negligent and heedless and not mindful of God's mercy upon our lives. There are many of us, many brothers and sisters who have asked for du'as. We use this opportunity to be grateful to Allah, to have this platform and to be able to do du'a for them, that Allah grants them. One of my dear friends, his parents are suffering from the COVID-19. May Allah grant them shifa and speedy recovery. And for all of those who are suffering around the world from COVID-19 and any other ailments, may Allah grant all of you shifa and all of them shifa in these days and these nights. Wa akhiru da'wana anil hamdu lillahi rabbil alamin.